This thanks on me.
The $500 billion in inflationist deficits have caused the highest levels of inflation in 40 years now. Canadians are cutting to be able to afford food, and young people have to live in their parents' basements. The economic update will give the government the opportunity to cancel these inflationary policies. But is it not ironic that the things that the government is going to have to do to address this crisis are cancelling 100% of what they've done for 7 years? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to inflation, we have a concrete plan. Reducing daycare costs for families, doubling the GST tax credit, giving $500 for housing, and offering dental support for 500,000 young Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what's ironic is that when they had the opportunity to vote for Canadians, they voted against Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Liberal Leader Mark Carney has said that inflation is domestically generated. So has the current Governor of the Bank of Canada. And now, after $500 billion of inflationary deficits, the Finance Minister is pretending that she believes, like Conservatives, that government spending is driving this crisis in the first place. Isn't it ironic that the solution to the problem the government will have to pursue if it wants to make life more affordable is to do exactly the opposite of what they have been doing for the last 7 years?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on inflation, our government is taking concrete steps to reduce child care fees, and in my own province, it's over $6,000 for average for family, doubling the GST credit, providing a one-time $500 payment for renters, and Mr. Speaker, 500,000 kids will get dental coverage that they never had before. What's ironic in this House, Mr. Speaker, is that when the Conservatives had the chance to vote for Canadians, they voted against, we voted for them.
Leader of the Opposition.
None of what they've done has actually worked. This week we found out 20% of Canadians are skipping meals or cutting portions to afford groceries. In fact, 1.5 million Canadians are have in 1 month visited the food bank. And finally, speaking of food banks, the one at Jane and Finch actually got kicked out of its location because rent doubled. How much pain will Canadians have to suffer before this government stops its inflationary policies?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that times are tough for Canadians, and that's why our government, since we've been in office in 2015, has lifted 2 million people out of poverty. We know that it's not enough. We know that there's more to do, and that begs the question, Mr. Speaker, why did the Conservatives vote against vulnerable kids who just wanted to get their teeth looked at? Why did they vote against people who needed a $500 top-up on their housing? Why did they vote against childcare? And, Mr. Speaker, we know they can't wait to cut it up. We are always going to stand on the side of Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
According to a Bloomberg Nanos poll, the largest share of Canadians in recorded history say they are worse off than a year ago. What did the NDP do as a solution to that? They voted to raise home heating bills. Yes, them along with their costly coalition partners in the Liberal Party voted twice to make home heating more expensive by tripling the carbon tax. The Liberals understand that the purpose of the carbon tax is to make home heating more expensive. Will they tell the NDP that that is in fact the plan?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you it's nice to take a question from my friend opposite once again, but I gotta say, as an Atlantic Canadian, it really burns me to see this line of questioning. We're dealing with neighbours that I've got right now who've lost over 6 figures in corn crops that they're trying to feed their cattle. We've seen silos come down, we've seen wharves damaged, and we know that when we put a price on pollution, it puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. If they want to be laggards when it comes to climate action, they're free to do so, but they shouldn't be so committed to taking money from my neighbours while they do it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the carbon tax is not a climate plan. It is a tax plan. They have not hit a single solitary climate change target since they took office. And now they want to not double down, but triple down on their failure by tripling the carbon tax as we go into a winter when analysts expect that heating costs will go up 100% and more for families in that member's riding who heat their homes with oil. Mr. Speaker, will the costly coalition, including the NDP, finally reverse themselves so the Canadians can keep the heat on?
The Honourable Minister.
With respect to the allegation that our plan to put a price on pollution is a tax on Canadian households, he knows it's bogus. Year after year after year, he's been making this point in the House of Commons, and year after year after year, it's proven to him that Canadians actually receive more from a dividend than they put out on pricing. The reality is this is one amongst many measures of our climate plan. We know that it's the right thing to do, and we're seeing it in my community because right now, it's very clear the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of taking action. We're going to do the right thing, both by the environment and the bottom line of Canadian households.